So the demand for retaining your top talent is more critical than ever. Looking at employment statistics for licensed beauty professionals, especially in the cosmetology, nail technician, licensed esthetician space, 19% employment growth is what's projected in the current decade that we're in. In addition to that, you're seeing that seasoned and tenured licensed professionals are starting to leave the profession or retire, while that's coupled with an incredible surge in growth in the demand for your beauty services. Med spas, while there's a variety of service providers within the med spa space, are seeing double-digit growth year over year, and with the biggest demand being with injectors and injectable services. So when we think about that, you've got a lot kind of stacked against you. So the demand for keeping, let me say it this way, the demand for your talent is higher than ever. And there's so many different competitive opportunities for them to work for different brands, different businesses. So the criticality of you retaining your talent is now more prevalent than ever. This esteemed group of panelists have decades of experience from various different brands within the spa, salon, and med spa space. And when we were preparing for this conversation, it easily became apparent that we could have had a full day seminar with everything that they had to share. So we kind of wrapped it up into 3 key themes, because these were the 3 themes that kept coming up during our overall preparation conversations. So when it comes to how we attract, engage, and retain our top talent, the 3 themes that you'll see woven out through our conversation and discussion today are trust, training, and your company culture, and the community that your service providers feel by being part of your brand. We're going to go through a number of different questions, but I encourage all of you to please submit your questions into Slido using that QR code, just as we did for the earlier panel presentation, and we'll get to those by the end of the presentation. So training. When we think about how does your brand provide a foundation, that initiation for your new team members and the talent that you are trying to attract, retain, and maintain a successful career path with, kind of comes down to 2 main facets. You've got your technical training, and then you've got your management and business leadership training. So I'd like to start off with a question for Larry. Sure. When it comes to technical training, what are some of the changes or the considerations that you feel are most prevalent as it pertains to top talent?
Yeah. Well, training is definitely the foundation of what the technicians are looking for. From my experiences, the training is what they want the company to stand behind the most, right? So most people leave if they're not growing within their craft, right? Or another reason why they leave is that they're not communicating or see eye to eye with the individual who they report to, okay? So it's interesting when we were talking, training talent or training trust and culture was the key, but it's all very intertwined, right? It's all connected. What I have found is that learning management systems are very important, especially when you have multi-unit type of businesses, having an archive of education that people could refer back to as a resource. But most important now, especially after COVID, they want to go back to hands-on. They really want the hands-on interaction. They also want it to be shorter than what it was in the past. It seems like 3 months is that sweet spot. So then the challenge is you have all this content, and you don't want to shrink the content because you don't want to compromise quality, right? In the individual being ready to service the guest under your brand. So how do you do it? Well, you have to literally, it seems as though they want more hours of classes per week so they could get through the program a little bit faster. Well, that's good. But then that presents another type of challenge, and that challenge is making sure that their interpersonal skills are ready. So what we found is that rather than having them bring a friend or a relative as a model, we really need to present models for them so they could feel that anxiety and they could test themselves, and they can also required to do the services that we teach in real time duration that they're going to experience when they have a chair. So I'm speaking from the hair salon perspective. So if they book on the 45 minutes, if that's the expectation, then every model within that training program should be on the 45 minutes so they continuously feel that. A very interesting, really quick story. I had an individual who I was talking to. She was just ready to be on the floor, meeting service guests, and she goes, "I'm scared." I said, "Well, what are you most scared of?" And she goes, "Why, should I be scared about more things?" And I go, no. What are you scared of? And she goes, "I'm scared of the guests not liking what I do." And I said, "Well, that's why we have the education. What if she does like it? And if she doesn't, you have a strong enough foundation that you're able to back yourself out of it and then correct or fix or enhance and make sure that that guest likes it," right? So the only way that the technician can do that is if the training program is very structured and concise and very architectural. So the guests can understand the geometrics of the hair cutting so they could revert back to really core principles of hair cutting. And then from there, everyone who ends up on the floor or is a hairdresser or colorist within your brand has the same nomenclature, the same foundation. So when you do advanced training or ongoing training, everyone is starting from the same baseline and they really understand it, which creates a lot of consistency and which then creates a lot of trust within the brand that we're a team together, you know. So it's all intertwined, you know.
Yeah. What you can now refer to is that you turned her fear into curiosity.
Yeah.
And you gave her those, those strong principles to
Yeah.
have that confidence behind the floor. One of the other interesting things as we were having this conversation is that training has to be efficient, but also an experience. And so Marilyn, will you talk about how you're making training an experience for your providers?
At DermaPure, we try to make sure if it's technical that people experience themselves the treatment. So we gather per region people together. Let's say we have lunch clean and brilliant at one point, and everybody had to get it and you know, demo on the other person. But it really creates an enthusiast, you know, like it's easy to ship a machine and say, let's get trained by the provider, supplier, and get it done, get it up and ready. But if you do something special about it, everybody will feel special, and it's a rolling ball. Like I think to create events, to launch a new service, a new product, and really integrate the provider into the experience, for me, is number one. If they have not experienced it, how they can deliver and know how the patient feels. And even more in our industry where we're, you know, sometimes it's invasive or semi-invasive laser and all that. It's not that much pampering like other salons do and really care, massage, hair, but in medical aesthetic, it's sometimes painful. So very important that the patient, the provider knows what is gonna deliver to the patient and how they can, after that, surround the patient with some little gesture, you know, to make it soft and nicer. So that's one part, but bringing them together, spending the day, creating events, bring fun, it's very important for us.
Yes, yes. And Susan, having 3 dynamic brands within Edgeless Beauty, training is constantly in motion for you. How are you bringing that to life for your team across 3 different brands?
Well, people is my passion. So I am crazy passionate about making sure that I'm serving my team. And I feel that if I'm serving my team will, you know, do an amazing job, serving the guest, patient, or student. Just from the student's perspective, I think it's important for the group to know, because I'm in the school business, we have 2 schools, and what you're seeing over the last 10 years is cosmetology graduates have slowly declined around North America, but esthetology is increasing. So, and massage is sort of flat. So for a lot of brands in the room, I think it's important to note retaining your team, caring for your team is incredibly important right now as limited team coming into the industry. Although, aesthetics is certainly, seeing multi-channels growing well, and it's all about making sure they're getting the services, they're getting feedback on services, if you're a massage therapist, you're the first team that's coming in to work with you as a guest are massage therapists. So we tell our massage team, come in weekly. You can get as many treatments as you want. We know they're tired. We want to make sure that they're getting replenishment. And there's some dynamic therapists that we're hiring. And so they're like, great, for the next 6 weeks. And so whenever we're hiring, that team gets a lot of benefit of being models for services. Obviously, I'm in the Medi-Spa sector as well. I've got 2 Medi-Spas called Skin Bar RX. And halfway through the year, you'd be talking 16 to 18 trainings I've provided. We talk about every phone call is worth $1,000. So, how do you make sure that you are pepped and ready to answer the phone? Mm-hmm. In the Medi-Spa sector, at least in my experience, 7 out of every 10 calls come in, reservations come in over the phone, whereas in the day spa business, it's a little bit more of 50-50. And so we have less opportunity to engage. Still, so many consumers want to know more about the treatments. So training the front lines, leadership training and empowering them. 7 Habits from Stephen Covey we use a lot. It's dynamic training. And I think, we use that with faculty as well. And, we call ourselves a training company. Frankly, and so it's never stop learning, but it's a big deal today as you retain team members. You got your 15, 20-year team members who don't want the same kind of education as someone who's 5 years or 10 years and under. And so we are customizing education where we call it an all play when it's required to attend, and then there'll be a certain segment of people who are required to attend. We're a couple of 100 team members strong, so sometimes training across all at the same time is challenging. So we're constantly customizing educational experiences.
Yeah, there's so many layers and so many facets to it. I know training for all of you is constantly in motion. It's constantly a focus and a priority for your business, and that is helping you all to retain your top talent and help to grow and cultivate those careers. A big part of that, and one of the things that I've learned over my career too, is the managers and the business leaders that you have as extensions of all of you as either owners or CEOs are such a critical part of that. So as you're training in your technical team, having comparable training to support that through your managers and your leaders is really key and critical. Larry, obviously, having worked with you for a number of years in the industry myself, manager training, what does that mean to you, and how have you considered that as important for service providers?
Yes, well, that's very important as well. But just one more thing on technical training. We've been speaking about technical training, but we have to remember that what they're looking for is a balance between creative training, business training, and then also another piece is how to promote themselves through social media. They're doing it, but it's important for, as a brand, to be able to teach them how to do it in a way where it's most effective, but also in a way that all roads leads back to your brand. And that training is, I think, programs that have that separate themselves from the basic technical training that just about all of you have, right? So it's a little bit more well-rounded. But when it comes to general managers, leadership training is key because the brand, when you have multi-units, they're big companies, but I feel personally it's important to think small. So each individual store is its own representation of your brand, And that's a reflection of that general manager on how they lead that team. So the more consistency you have throughout the general managers in regards to their belief and values, or the more consistency you have within your general managers on the attributes that are required to be a leader to run a salon or spa is very important. And each of those attributes should have its own module that the general managers continuously go through. If it's conflict resolution, if it's interpersonal skills, what have you, the equal importance of the general manager is what really keeps the brand consistent and strengthens. And again, we know technicians leave because my manager doesn't understand my personal needs, or they don't get me as an individual, or they don't understand my contribution to the brand. And those are all things that you can help the general manager understand that is important through a good leadership academy. Yeah. There's great books out there for it. 7 Habits is awesome. A book called Pin Drop is fabulous. It's a book that we've used that has helped our general managers be able to either speak in front of a crowd or speak as an individual. So it talks about delivering the message in a way that is effective, but still leaving the individual feeling great about themselves, which is a very hard. We can reprimand somebody easy, but having them leave that constructive criticism that we're giving them with more confidence than what they had before you talk to them, that's the trick, right? We want to set them up for success. So I agree. I mean, Susan hit the nail on the head. We're in the business of developing successful careers within the beauty industry, right? That's the higher purpose of the brand, and then everything we can do under that. But we can't forget about the general manager. No. Otherwise, you're going to have regional managers running around putting out fires and fingers in the dam the whole time, when those are only quick fixes. You know, it's not sustainable. Also, if you don't train the manager when they're not there, the place doesn't run as if they were there. And it really has to run. Yeah, that right consistency way. And the experience that they have working for that general manager is really key. And it transitions perfectly into our next key, which was trust. So how do your service providers feel about their relationship, and can they trust the business that they're working with and the leaders that they are working with and for? So our next question is, how do your brands establish trust within your team and ensure you're delivering what they need and what they're looking for as them dedicating their careers into your business at the time? And Jenny, with your extensive human resources experience, I really love some of the data points in that Gallup poll that you had shared on what employees need.
Yeah, so at Douglas J, we have 350-ish employees, and throughout the years, I've worked there about 13 years, but throughout the years, we've seen our turnover go from 45%, on an annual basis, all the way down to 28%. And so in our time, Douglas J was invested in finding out why, what makes or breaks that employee's experience. And so I had the opportunity to go out to Gallup and learn about their employee engagement surveys and, what really does mean employee engagement. Like, what does that mean for an employee? And they break it down really cool. It's similar to like the Haslow's, hierarchy of needs. And so employees have from the very, basic needs of understanding what's required of them, all the way to feeling like they have growth opportunities, with the company. And so in my time, we've done the survey several times and we get the answers back, and most importantly, you have to really listen to the answers, but you also have to take action on them. So asking the question isn't enough, but when you take action on that question, that's really showing the employees that you're dedicated to making their, employment successful. One of those points was that employees need to receive recognition, and it doesn't have to be just from the manager. It could be from a coworker, it can be, anybody, but they should be receiving that once every 7 days. And so that's like really frequent. And so that showed us an opportunity because that was an area that we didn't score well on originally. And so just meeting that need, finding opportunities to provide our managers, tools that they can use to meet those needs of the employees. And so throughout that, you survey each year, but you get improvements, hopefully, and then have the opportunity to improve on those areas. So one area that we did was like recognition toolboxes and providing each location like a box of goodies that they can make it super simple, super specific, but actionable. And so meeting those needs. Employees need to feel good that often, then we need to make it really easily accessible for our managers to do so.
Jenny, one of the things that you mentioned that I appreciated too is that you said, let your vendors help you to accomplish that, and that you don't have to necessarily put a lot of dollars behind it, that there are very generous partnerships from vendors that help to fund your recognition that you're giving to your team members.
Absolutely, and it can be just verbal. Kudos, great job. I noticed you went the extra mile, or hey, have a coffee on us. And so it didn't have to be, significantly expensive. It didn't have to be anything huge. It's just that pat on the back, kudos, I noticed you. And as often as you can do that, that makes the employees want to come back to work because they feel like they're contributing to the team and that they're valued and that they're, growing as individuals.
Thanks, Jenny. And Marilyn, one of the things that you were so passionate about is how your employees feel and how they feel heard. Will you share a little bit about your philosophy and practices around having that rapport with your team?
For me, it's always been about people since the beginning. So DermaPure, it's now 15 years, and 15 years ago we opened the first clinic, now 70, so 800 employees. And from the beginning, with the smallest team we had, we promised each other to work with our values that we built together, and we want to give back to the community. So we stayed very close about the values. For us, it's in movement. So it's we care, we empower, we dare, we innovate. So they are part of it. It's not just great words, and we decided to nurture those four, and it applies to everything we do. Sometimes, yes, people will ask for a salary increase, but if we care for the entire company, not just for one individual. So we want to explain that we take care of the entire family and use our value in every decision we make. So that's very important. So stay close as a family. I know it's a challenge as you grow. I have heard earlier people who have 1,000 locations. That's amazing. Us, it's all across Canada. It's a wide country too, from Moncton to Vancouver. And we speak different language. You can see I'm a French Canadian, but I think to keep this local family approach per city, per province, per location is also important. Recognize that they are different from Saskatoon to Calgary to Toronto. It's all different. They have their own color. Even we are building brands, I think to respect that local color is important. And even they are all under umbrellas. And I think it comes from the leadership. I care about people. I do hire executives that care about their people. We are in the service industry. So if it doesn't go well, if we get too serious, a lot of us getting very serious as executive because we manage big problems, keep the fire, it's very important that we are I have a hard time with this word, enlight. We are there to enlight the fire of our teams and inspire them. If we yes, we need parameter, we need rigor, control, script, role plays, but us as leader and your leadership team needs to be inspiring people. They need to care about people, and this is huge drivers. It's a challenge as you grow in a business that you start, you were a young entrepreneur, startup, growing, it was exciting, the first group follow you, and then you become corporate, and it becomes more serious, and there's more shareholders, there's finance. So staying very humble, authentic, accessible, that's what I'm looking for with our executive people we hire. So I think it comes from the leadership also to be inspiring for the team.
Yes, absolutely.
More value than just the salary.
Yes, and one of the sound bites that you had shared was that you've got to listen to your team or they will go somewhere where they are being heard.
Yes.
And that culture that you've got, we'll talk a little bit more about culture in a moment, but yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that. And Susan, you had shared a little bit about tools and technology and how you're using that in the relationship of your providers too.
Well, we're here at Zenoti, right? And nothing could be more fantastic than the team members app that has full transparency to total service, retention, tipping, all the data points are right there for those team members who, want to dive deeper into it. They have full accessibility to the guest or the patient's name, phone number access. Today with Instagram, it's very easy to be transparent to, retaining teams. So love these Zenoti tools that are very helpful. Otherwise, in trust, we're always talking about the corporate, right? Because, Lena, who's a friend that's here, we were talking about how we can get more payroll information that's net and not gross, because we think that's really valuable information. The cost in the Medi-Spa market is so high. The consumables are really expensive, and so you really want to make sure you're as transparent as possible in sharing some of that cost of goods sold. So we do that every month at our meetings. We talk about our cost of goods sold. We're constantly informing everyone so they understand some of the peaks and some of the pits, in operating in salons, in stores. And that's why we use Vish at the Institute level to help train new talent joining the industry to understand their cost of goods sold. It matters if you're using a dozen 4x4s for every guest or patient experience. How much waste you have, it really matters to how we operate. And again, having the transparency to talk about the tax that I pay on their gratuity, and the costs of our healthcare and the costs of, so we're always, training and engaging around understanding these costs. How do we all be better buyers of healthcare to help keep our health insurance? We're 92% women in my business, so we are a little bit more expensive health insurance wise. Yeah. So how do we give educational information to make sure that we are managing all of our resources well? So we're really transparent with it all.
Yes, thank you, Susan. And we're going to stay with you because as we're transitioning into community and company culture, one of the things that you were really expressive about when we were in this conversation is that maintaining that financial health and the integrity of your of all of our businesses as it pertains to like discounting and pricing. Do you want to expand a little bit more about that?
Well, I think in the company culture, we are for the most part in prestige, and the quality of the experience that is there. It's how we treat our team with that same kind of quality. How do their break rooms look when they get greeted in the morning? Who's high-fiving everyone at huddles? Who's celebrating at the end of the night with a debrief to say, wow, that was an amazing retail sale experience. You're number one, in retail here, or lasers there, or hair color here, your add-ons. So the company culture around celebrating is a big part of it. I'm very active on Instagram with my team, probably more so than I am on my own Instagram, but I'm always trying to celebrate and reward their work and high-five them and gratitude moments. And, it's all about, doing unto others you want to have them do unto you, right? And so we have this sort of deep love sense, I think, and that's why we retain a lot of our team members.
Yeah, that energy that they feel by being part of the Edgeless Beauty brand is really key. Yes. And Jenny, will you share with us from the benefits and the compensation perspective on an HR front, how do you see it, and how does Douglas Shea bring it to light for your team?
Yeah, so at Douglas Shea, our passion is, providing a great opportunity for, hairstylists and salon providers. And so it's always been our passion to make sure that we're providing the benefits that they need to feel, like they have a work-life balance, or like they're able to, get the needs that they have. And so everything from looking at compensation every year. What positions are we competitive with? Which are we not? I think there was a time that we felt really confident that it's just a great work environment, and so that has value to it. But that's kind of gone away, and we need to be competitive with pay. We need to do market research, make adjustments, and keep on that, because as cost of living goes up, so do our wages. Our wages have to follow. We can't just expect that the traditional 3% raise each year is going to keep them afloat and competitive in the industry. So looking at specific jobs and knowing which ones we need to make huge adjustments to, and then doing so. We also make sure that we offer a variety of benefits. Like, they need medical insurance, they need dental, and what can Douglas J do to contribute towards that to make it affordable and improve upon that year after year. We also, want to make sure we offer a 401k. Are they planning for retirement? So all of those little pieces that, again, make it feel like a long-term career and make them want to stay and show that we support and want them to be successful.
Thank you so much, Jenny. And before we get to all of our audience questions, I just wanted to ask Larry, as you reflected on the industry and seeing the shift from, salons and commissionable beauty professionals to booth renters and independent stylists, and kind of like where it's come to today, like what are those main points that are keeping beauty professionals from being independent but staying with like a salon brand community?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. There's options now for cosmetologists, right?
Yeah.
So, which is good. Options are good, because options, if you look at them, positively, it gives you an opportunity, or us an opportunity, to be able to highlight what differentiates our business model.
Yeah.
One thing that I personally seen, is that, especially after COVID, because COVID was so isolating, that I've personally seen some booth renters, or independent contractors, which is definitely a better term, yearn for that sense of community. They want to come back to a team. I think the guest does as well. Not in all cases, nothing's absolute, but we do see a little bit of a shift. Now, I'm speaking in regards to the Chicago area, so you would know as it relates to your market, but that's kind of what we're seeing. But what I see within the industry also, to be able to strengthen the brand, because a good culture and a strong culture and a strong brand attracts like-minded people. So when we get it right, then like-minded people want to come to your brand. So the more clear your culture is, the more clear the brand, what the brand stands for is, the better we are all, because we're going to attract those individuals that are like-minded. I feel as though, it's funny we're talking about retaining talent, but I feel as though we hold on to some talent too long. And that deteriorates your culture faster than we know, because the technicians know. We, as leaders, tend to spend too much time with individuals that don't fit the culture, and they just suck your time away. Where if we invested that same time into the individuals who match your culture, we would be that much farther ahead. It took me years to understand that, but that's the truth. And what happens is, when you let go of individuals who don't fit, then the individuals who do fit appreciate it immensely. And then cream rises to the top. And then that oppression of talent, or that oppression of creativity, gets lifted from individuals who are bullies. And maybe we're holding on to them because of the revenue. But we can't. We have to trust the culture. If it's about the culture, then everything has to be about the culture. And it's tough. It takes, we have to be brave. I could tell you a story that we've had instances where, it's an esthetician of the year, 4 months later, we realized that we had to let her go. to help that location. We had a colorist that was in the top 3 in the company. Long time we had to let her go because she was keeping the rest of the colorists under her thumb, you know. And so those are tough decisions, but if we're truly talking about culture, you got to make those tough decisions. Yeah. A great exercise, a great question that I like to ask our leaders within the companies that I've been associated with is, knowing what you know today about the individual, would you enthusiastically rehire that individual?
Yeah.
And if you have a quick no, well, once you do let them go, instead of getting credit from the staff is going to say, well, it's about time, what took you so long? But if you proactively see it, act on it, and do what you need to do, they're going to say, thank you, I appreciate that. You know, so, you know, it's weird, right? We're talking about retaining staff, and I'm telling you to let them go, but that's not what I'm saying. But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the culture is the holy grail.
Yeah.
And you have to protect it within no ends. Otherwise, there's not a lot of what differentiate ourselves, because we all do great work, we all have great training programs, we all care, but the culture has different tweaks, you know, that fit the business model.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as I started by saying, this easily could have turned into a whole day seminar. We are running short on time, so I want to see if there's maybe one question, Melody, that we can get to from what came in through Slido.
Hello.
Oh, we can hear you now.
It's a shame that we only have time for one question because there's a lot of great questions in here, but there is a theme. I'm going to make this two-sided, double-loaded here for you guys. The investment in training is a question, but coupled with the fact that once you invest your time, the financial component, into training these people, what is the risk that they will leave? So is there a contract? Is there a non-compete? Are there other things in that that are protecting your investment in a sense for that training?
Yeah.
I don't have a contract.
Neither do we. We used to have non-compete, non-solicitation. Everything has been dismissed. So they're really, you're just out there trying to do the best you can every day, you know, and providing great education. Everyone's paid hourly to attend. All the education, even commissionable service providers. So when I do education, there's one cost to the education. There's another cost of the, you know, the payroll to make that education happen. So it's got to be good. And but we don't have any non-competes.
Yeah, we're the same. You know, we had non-competes for a period of time, but it is poisonous to the location to hold somebody back that isn't engaged in their role anymore. And so that, I think, is a bigger risk than them going to work for somebody else that they want to work for. So holding them back and holding it only creates more problems than what you want for them.
Yes, I'm not trying to rush you guys, but Marilyn, go ahead.
I think part of the training also, the onboarding, the first 2 weeks, the first day, the first week, the way we onboard people is very crucial.
Yes.
So that's my type of contract. You know, we have different touch points, even executive. We'll have 30 minutes with them. We try to make it fun. So I think the first impression will make something important in if they stay or not. Training, tactical, like technical, it's the same everywhere.
If you make their employee experience so great that they don't want to leave, then you don't need a contract because they are anchored to you and to your brand. And I just want to thank all of you. As you can see up here, our panelists were so generous to continue the conversation. If you'd like to connect with them on Instagram, they're here all day today and tomorrow as well. So I can't thank all of you enough for sharing your expertise and your time by being part of this with all of us today.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.